From cursed tombs and mysterious artifacts to inexplicable hieroglyphs, the mysterious land of Egypt is full of terrifying secrets. And while the ancient civilization is known to have invented some of the most useful things in human history, the mysteries buried deep beneath the sands show us a different side of the land of Ra. Join me as in today's video, I'm about to reveal the 16 creepiest things hidden in Egypt. Number 1. Canopic jars, full of organs. Surprisingly, digging up a mummy is no longer something new or creepy in Egypt. More than 1 million of them have already been discovered, with most being cats. Believe it or not, it's estimated that there are more than 70 million mummies hidden in Egypt, and considering how mummification was carried out for nearly 3,000 years, I'm sure that's an underestimate. And while researchers will never be sure about the exact number of mummified bodies, there's something else hidden in Egypt that is definitely in the millions. See, when Egyptians mummified the dead, drying the body and stuffing it weren't the only steps involved. Precision cuts were actually made on the sides of the bodies to pull out their organs. Yup. Before mummifying any dead body, the Egyptians made sure to remove the organs as well as the brain. They had a hook-like instrument that was inserted inside the nose and yanked hard to pull the brain right out of the nostrils. But what did they even do with the organs and brain? Well, they stored it in canopic jars alongside the mummified body. That's absolutely creepy, because when you think about it, there are probably millions of organs and brains hidden underneath Egypt. Oh, and thankfully, they just left the heart in the body. But if you ever decide to go tomb raiding, be prepared to find thousands of jars with millions of organs. Number 2. Retainers. What would be more creepy than millions of organs hidden inside jars? Well, how about several bodies with no heads buried beside their masters? Back in the age, whenever a king or a pharaoh died, retainer sacrifices were a common act performed by the Egyptians. Retainers were simply slaves who were killed when their masters passed and had to be buried in their tombs to serve them in the afterlife. But in order for one to truly have a peaceful afterlife, one's body had to persevere to the highest degree. And while pharaohs and kings got royal treatment by being mummified in linen, all while covered with amulets and luxurious jewelry, the retainers had to go through a rather horrifying experience. Since their bodies needed to be preserved in the best way possible, the Egyptians thought beheading the slaves would prevent disfiguration and make the journey to the afterlife an easy one. There are many accounts of murder by strangulation and poisoning as well, but beheading was perhaps the most common way to take their lives. And now, in retrospect, imagine how many retainers without heads must be hidden beneath Egypt. I mean, that's just terrifying. Number 3. King Tut's special dagger. When a group of archaeologists stumbled upon an ancient burial chamber back in 1923, I bet they had no idea what they were about to find. It was the tomb of the boy king Tutankhamun, and was easily the biggest discovery in ancient Egypt's history. Inside the burial chamber were 100s of luxurious items made from gold and other valuable resources set to assist the young king in the afterlife. But out of all the extravagant items, there was one thing that caught the eye of everyone in the chamber. It was a beautiful iron dagger with a carved golden sheath. What's interesting is, every item in the room was placed away from the king, but this dagger lay beside his thigh. What was so special about the dagger that it was placed so close to the boy king? Well, believe it or not, legend has it that the dagger has special spiritual powers that are said to assist the king in the afterlife. And what makes this even more creepy is the dagger isn't from this world. Yep, I'm not making this up. The iron is actually meteoric, meaning it probably came from a meteor that crashed into the earth during that time. But when you look at all those strange hieroglyphs of ancient Egyptians on strange vehicle-looking objects and wearing stuff that almost looks like a spacesuit, it's possible that the iron didn't come from the meteor, and there were indeed some other powers involved. Could it be possible that the dagger was actually a gift from extraterrestrials? Number 4. The Book of the Dead. What's interesting about the Book of the Dead is that it's actually a guide or instruction manual for the deceased to find their way to the afterlife. The book is pretty much a compilation of around 200 spells and rituals assembled from various scribings and scrolls. But it's not exactly the spells that are creepy. It's what they're meant to protect the deceased from that sends shivers down everyone's spines. The Book of the Dead contains spells that are meant to protect the deceased from demons, snakes, and other terrifying creatures set out to prevent entry to the afterlife. Believe it or not, the Egyptians were so scared of all the trials after death that they ultimately started writing these spells on linen, used to mummify the dead. Sure, it might not be the most evil book ever found in human history, but its existence points at all the other mysteries that might be hidden in Egypt. For example, just like the Guide to the Afterlife, researchers and archaeologists have come across numerous hieroglyphs indicating the existence of harmful spells as well. Magic was very intense in Egypt. It was believed that some ancient Egyptians even had the power to cast dangerous curses and summon demons. Legend has it that there are still hidden items in Egypt that have the ability to call on dangerous creatures and demons capable of some serious chaos. Let's just hope no one ever comes across a book like that. Number 5. Ushabti dolls. Just like the canopic jars full of organs and headless bodies inside tombs, the ancient Egyptians also left another creepy thing with their dead. Imagine entering a burial chamber and spotting hundreds or even thousands of small, realistic dolls just staring right at you. These are the Ushabti dolls, and while most Egyptians were buried with a few of them, the ones with high status had hundreds of dolls present in their burial chambers for one specific reason: to help them in the trials of the afterlife. The ancient Egyptians believed that the Ushabti were simply answerers or helpers assisting their master to perform menial tasks. And while they're definitely not the creepiest thing in this video, just imagine how many of these tiny dolls are hidden underneath Egypt right now. I mean, conservative estimates put the total number of mummies in Egypt at 70 million. And considering how each mummy was buried with quite a few Ushabti, there's literally a massive population of realistic dolls underneath the country right now. There's even a spell in the Book of the Dead that summons the Ushabti to serve their master after resurrection. Oh, and here's another interesting fact about these creepy realistic dolls. Some kings and ancient Egyptians with high status actually had an Ushabti for every single day of the year, meaning they were buried with 365 of these terrifying little dolls. Number 6. The Lost Labyrinth of Egypt. Around 2,500 years ago, there was an absolutely massive labyrinth in Egypt, and legend has it the pyramids did not even come close to its extravagance. It was a magnificent building with 2 floors, but underneath it was a complex network of chambers and tunnels, with historical records indicating the presence of nearly 3,000 rooms. The labyrinth itself was gigantic, covering an area of nearly 300,000 square feet. But what was this labyrinth even for? Why did the Egyptians build something so grand underneath the surface? Or was it even built by the Egyptians, considering just how perfect and advanced everything was for that time of age? No one knows, because the labyrinth has now been lost, and all of the mysteries and secrets have been hidden underneath the sand along with it. The labyrinth is actually mentioned a couple of times in history as well by Greek historians, who claim it significantly overshadowed the greatness of the pyramids. They've also mentioned how it had always been out of bounds for normal Egyptians, and only those with high status were allowed down there, as many of the chambers were burial sites of kings, queens, and crocodiles. Yep, crocodiles. A lot of the chambers inside this ancient labyrinth were actually for sacred crocodiles. Either way, who knows what other secrets and history were lost with this monumental labyrinth, and it just adds even more mystery to whether the ancient civilization harnessed greater forces to construct megastructures with such fine precision. Number 7. The hidden chamber of the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid was built nearly 4,600 years ago by Khufu, the second king of Egypt's 4th dynasty. But like all the other pyramids, this one was also just solid rock, with a few passages leading to burial chambers. It's long believed that the pyramids are simply monuments built to honor a king's rule, and the bigger the pyramid, the greater the leader. But in 2017, all that changed when a group of archaeologists used advanced machinery to scan the pyramid and get a much clearer picture of what's really inside. They were blown away when they discovered a third unexplored chamber with one little mystery. There is no way to get in or outside of the chamber. I mean, that just leads to one simple question. What is inside that chamber? What could it be that King Khufu didn't want it ever seeing the light of the sun? Could it be another ancient artifact possibly buried in the third chamber to assist him in the afterlife? Or could it be a hidden secret, or even a creature that once haunted ancient Egypt? There has been quite a lot of speculation that the hidden chamber is nothing but a forgotten burial site, but you do know what it means. means, right? Whoever buried someone down there was probably sealed off and forced to die inside as well. Number 8. The Dendera Light. Could it be that the ancient Egyptians actually had access to electricity even thousands of years back in time? Well, the Dendera light motif at the Hathor temple might just be proof that the historical civilization had access to tools far more advanced than what we use today. And while there is no evidence to prove the existence of any device that functioned as a light bulb during that age, it's possible that it may have been lost or gotten destroyed with time. The original symbol on the large relief at the temple shows a snake in a big ball of fire coming out of a lotus flower. Whatever the structure is, it's being held up by a pillar with human hands, and the creepy thing about it is it looks exactly like a light tube invented in the early 19th century. And when you think about how there are so many theories surrounding how the Egyptians may just have been much more advanced than what we really think, could it be possible that there is ancient technology hidden in Egypt? I mean, just imagine for a second. If something as grand as an entire labyrinth can be lost to time, it's possible that advanced ancient technology might also be hidden in Egypt. Of course, this is still just a controversial theory at the end of the day, but if you go deeper into all the different looking symbols found in Egyptian history, it certainly makes you wonder what else could be hidden in the land of the Ra. Number 9. Queen Nefertiti, wife of the pharaoh Akhenaten. Queen Nefertiti is an icon in Egyptian history, but there's just one mysterious thing about her. She just magically disappeared from all Egyptian scripture, and neither hers nor her husband's tomb have ever been discovered. A lot of people believe that Queen Nefertiti became a pharaoh after her husband's passing and took on a different name. But some experts simply think she just wasn't as important as we think she was, but it still doesn't answer the question. How does a queen in a culture where kings and queens are considered to be almost gods just magically vanish from all historical records? Could it be that Queen Nefertiti was from a different descent and mysteriously vanished? Or are the theories of her not being as important correct? I guess we'll never know until her tomb or any mention of her is discovered. It's still one huge mystery because when you think about it, her tomb and mummy could be hidden anywhere in Egypt. Number 10. The Lost Land of Punt. It's not the tombs or the pyramids that hold the real secrets of Egypt. It's actually all their writings and hieroglyphs that possess all the answers. While experts are now almost fully able to understand these writings, there is still some meaning lost in translation, and I can't help but wonder if those could potentially be answers to some of the biggest mysteries. But speaking of Egyptian writings, there's a land referenced numerous times called Punt. Believe it or not, Punt is actually one of the very few lands that has gained the respect of the Egyptian people, as it is called the land of God in their scripture. It's said that the land of Punt was full of gold, ivory, and other exotic resources and even animals. But what happened to this godly area? Well, just like the lost labyrinth of Egypt, the land of Punt has also just vanished from existence. It makes zero sense because, let's not forget, these are massive structures and cities that have just been wiped out of nowhere. Could it be that there was an unrecorded catastrophe? Or is the land of Punt still hidden somewhere beneath Egypt? I guess we'll never know. Number 11. Treasures of tombs. One of the greatest treasures ever discovered inside of a tomb was that of King Tut's. As mentioned before in this video, his burial chamber was full of gold, emeralds, and other extravagant items accounting to his high status as king. It gives you a small glimpse of just how mighty the Egyptian pharaohs were, but now that we know there was an entire land full of gold near Egypt, I can't help but wonder just how much treasure is buried beneath the mysterious country. Sure, the pharaohs might have been limited in number, but there were probably thousands of high-status Egyptians who were buried with gold. Believe it or not, high-status Egyptians were even buried with a golden tongue, since they thought it would help them speak to deities in the afterlife. Can you just imagine how much treasure there would be if someone just randomly started digging up Egypt? Of course, you'd probably find a lot of mummies, organs, and creepy dolls, but the treasure would be out of this world. But along with all the gold, there are accounts of priceless paintings, statues, and even jewelry that would be worth billions of dollars today. There are actually a lot of archaeologists and treasure hunters who are actively searching for these lost treasures. I just hope they don't come across something cursed. Number 12. Mummified meat. Want to know something else hidden deep underneath Egypt? And it's not exactly going to be really mysterious either. Remember how the dead have everything buried with them for their journey to the afterlife? Well, did you ever wonder what they ate? No, right? Let me tell you. Along with all their mummified human and doll slaves, mummified meat has also been found in the tombs of Egyptians. I'm not making this up. There's probably tons of mummified meat underneath Egypt right now, and what's even more creepy is the dead actually got meat from their favorite animals mummified and buried with them so they wouldn't go hungry in the afterlife. And the interesting bit about that is it wasn't just the high-status Egyptians who got mummified meat for their long journey. Even the normal citizens got it buried with them, because everyone, regardless of status, had to go through trials and challenges to reach the afterlife, and it was only fair they got a fighting chance as well. But yeah, it's still kind of weird to think how there are so many creepy things mummified and hidden in Egypt. Number 13. Tomb of the Silver Pharaoh. Unlike King Tut's opulent gold tomb, I bet you've never heard of Suzen's Us, also known as the Silver Pharaoh. See, unlike King Tut or all the other pharaohs, Suzenese's was different and had his entire tomb made from solid silver. And when you consider how he died during a civil war, it's incredible to see the amount of power and wealth he must have had after seeing just how profligate his tomb is. When his tomb was opened, he had a gold mask on displaying his high status, wealth, and power at that time. And that just makes me wonder what sort of other tombs are still hidden in Egypt. We've seen them come in gold and silver, but is that really where the opulence ends? Could it be that there are tombs made from other luxurious resources as well? Is it possible that archaeologists will cover tombs made entirely of ivory in the future? Or better yet, what about an entire grave made of meteorite? Who knows what sort of creepy yet mind-boggling tombs are hidden in Egypt? Number 14. The truth about pharaohs. What you're about to hear next might just change your entire perspective about pharaohs in ancient Egypt. Despite what all the historical writings and hieroglyphs tell us, one of the creepiest things hidden in Egypt is actually the truth about pharaohs. What do I even mean by that? Well, the pharaohs weren't exactly healthy and fit. They had a terrible diet of beer, wine, bread, and honey. And in many cases, most of the pharaohs were often overweight and bald. But why would Egyptian historians keep that from us? Did they want the rest of the world to think the pharaohs were supreme, godlike beings? Or were they just afraid an image of an obese and bald pharaoh wouldn't do justice to their civilization? I have no idea, but it raises a lot of doubt about their writings and hieroglyphics. I mean, if they could hide the truth about pharaohs, they could have hidden a lot of other stuff as well. Number 15. Meteorite jewelry. Apart from King Tut's mysterious meteorite dagger, there weren't a lot of other traces of iron found in the tombs of ancient Egypt. Plus, considering how Egypt's Iron Age actually came thousands of years after the pharaohs, it's difficult to understand how there was so much iron jewelry found in all these tombs. Well, we already know that the answer comes from the stars, but could it be that Egyptians discovered something more than just a meteorite? What if it was an ancient technology of some sort that actually helped them build the pyramids? Could it be that this ancient meteorite is actually buried somewhere underneath Egypt? Or what if it's been concealed deep underneath one of the pyramids? Believe it or not, until recently, a lot of the tombs being uncovered only had bronze, silver, and gold jewelry. There were absolutely no traces of iron until a tomb was found near Cairo, having some of the most intricate iron jewelry ever. After some research, it was found that similar to Tut's dagger, this jewelry was also made from meteorite. Even if it was an actual meteorite that fell from the sky, how did the Egyptians build a fire hot enough to actually melt down the pure iron and design such intricate jewelry? I don't know about you, but for a religion that places so much emphasis on the cosmos, it's starting to become increasingly difficult to count out those theories of Egyptians being far more advanced than what we know. Number 16. The Cursed City of the Dead. So far in this video, we haven't really discussed any cursed item or tomb ever discovered or hidden in Egypt, but what I'm about to tell you next will change everything. In 2020, archaeologists were looking for mummified remains in the ancient city of Saqqara when they stumbled upon something absolutely horrific. It was a long, vertical shaft that was more than 20 feet deep, and what they found at the bottom was perhaps one of the creepiest and scariest things ever hidden in Egypt. The entire floor of the the shaft was covered with bones, and there were countless tombs stacked on each other one by one. It was a terrifying sight for everyone in the shaft, but when they started opening up the tombs to look for whatever treasures they may have inside, they ended up finding actual curses on the inside. One of the curses read, "How whoever defiles this body will be haunted by visions of ghosts and demons for life." Another tomb warned the defiler of having their neck stretched and ringed just like that of a goose. But yeah, disturbing the dead comes with a price. And when you come across a cursed city of the dead, it's best not to mess around. I can't even imagine all the other horrific curses hidden deep within the ground in the tombs of ancient Egyptians. There are also theories of how King Tut's tomb was cursed. And what's even more interesting is how a lot of archaeologists who discovered the boy king's tomb actually died or fell really sick after the exploration. But recent studies suggest that there were actually toxins inside the burial chamber that might have led to the deaths and illnesses. Either way, it's best not to take any chances when playing with the dead. Anyway, that's it for today's video. So what do you think? Were Egyptians actually much more advanced than we are today? And what did you find most creepy in this video? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more interesting content in the future.